Hello, Nasdaq followers, and welcome to another edition of Behind the Bell. Joining me right now as we gear up for the closing bell, it is a little bit past 3 o'clock. I'm Leanne Alfaro, and joining me right now are a few of the winners from the 2018 Chicago Innovation Awards. Stephen Galanis, co-founder and CEO of Cameo, which is delivering the new autograph, personalized videos from celebrities on demand. Susan Abrams, CEO of Illinois Holocaust Museum and Educational Center, which is making sure that people realize that they have a personal stake in history and making sure that they are upstanders as opposed to bystanders. Luke Saunders, CEO of Farmer's Fridge, was selling fresh meals from restaurants through vending machines, and Elizabeth Hars, who's leveraging tech to connect families and sitters. Thank you so much all for joining us. So all of you are winners of the 2018 Chicago Innovation Awards, so again, congratulations. Could you tell us a little bit about how in Chicago you were inspired to create your company?
Yeah, Chicago is such a town of fans. People love their sports teams, they love their musicians, so for us this was the perfect place to build a business.
And our museum was founded by survivors in Skokie community in response to a proposed neo-Nazi march in the late 70s, and they realized that education was the best antidote to hatred and indifference, and that led to the founding of our museum, which has grown to be the third largest Holocaust museum in the world.
Yeah, so I was a traveling salesman looking for better, higher quality food options in convenient locations, and started in Chicago because it's a food town and a great place to have a food business.
Absolutely. And Elizabeth on Sitter City.
Yeah, Sitter City was founded 18 years ago by a babysitter from Chicago. I actually joined Sitter City 2 years ago and spent most of my career in New York and Silicon Valley. And I would just say, having this chance to run a company in Chicago, it's been amazing to see how supportive and helpful the whole Chicago ecosystem is to fellow startups. And so, despite being national, having that hometown support and great networking has been terrific for Sitter City.
So huge range and diversity of companies that we have right here. So what drew you to Chicago Innovation Awards?
I think what you just said nailed it on the head. Chicago is a place where in the community where everybody's so supportive of one another, and everybody that could be helpful is. So I think that community really drew Cameo in, as a lot of the other companies here as well.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
I think for us it was, we started the business in Chicago, and it was an opportunity to showcase all the innovation that's happening behind the scenes at Farmer's Fridge. What most people see is a vending machine, and they don't realize all the work and innovation that's gone into it, and so that was great, an opportunity to showcase that.
And
First, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We won our Chicago Innovation Award for using interactive holograms to engage people with this critical history, and we're working towards the day in partnership with USC Shoah Foundation on this project towards the day when people won't have access to those stories firsthand. And so with interactive holograms, we've created through technology a way that people for generations to come, your grandchildren and their grandchildren, will be able to have these meaningful conversations with people who experience this history and to take away those lessons.
It's very important work you're working on to make history much more interactive. And tell us a little bit more about Sitter City.
Yeah, for Sitter City, as I mentioned, had been founded, nearly 19 years ago. At this point, was sort of Web 1.0, right? One of the first consumer tech startups in Chicago, and so we got involved with Chicago Innovation Awards in order to let the town, but the whole country know that we are innovating all of the time. And as you can imagine, 90% of babies born last year were to millennial parents who are digital natives and using phones and digital platforms for everything. And so we have been a student of what's going on in marketplaces and mobile-first apps, think everything from an Airbnb to a Grubhub, and applying a lot of those tools and technologies to what's most people's biggest responsibility, their children. And we were really excited to be recognized by the Innovation Awards.
Now, Elizabeth, I'm going to bounce off something that you just said there, which is all of the changes that have happened in the last decade, and let alone, the last 20 years
yeah.
in the world of startups and entrepreneurship. What are some of the trends that you've found in entrepreneurship and in just delivery of the business that you feel like you needed to pay attention to? Definitely mobile is something huge to pay attention to, but
Video's huge,
Yep.
authenticity, personalization, that's the backbone of our business. And going off of why Chicago is well suited for that, the marketplace model is one that I think is so native to Chicago, going back to its history at the CME and the Chicago Board of Trade. That's what I did before this, and I think we're just continuing a long line of innovators in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, Luke, I think you have plenty to add to this too. I mean, vending machines for meals. Who would have pictured that 10 years ago?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when I started, I wasn't sure if people were going to embrace this. And ultimately, what I realized is the quality of the product is really what drives consumers to come back. But technologically, we could not have done this 10 years ago. So the big things for us were connectivity. So we actually know what's in every single fridge in real time, can process payments, merchandise the product much better, and computing power. So we actually take all the data that we're getting and run an automated algorithm every day that tells us where to send the food. So that was the innovation that we had presented, was the ability to manage our inventory across this really complicated network where we're making fresh meals every single day and delivering them ourselves, so that waste becomes really important.
And now, Susan, for the Illinois Holocaust Museum, I think you bring up a really important point about making sure that these educational museums and institutions are able to draw connections to the tech world to kind of enhance an experience and understanding of history. So
Yes. For us, the technology, the custom voice recognition software combined with survivors recorded answering thousands of questions that can then be matched to 15 more questions each. So our holograms can answer about 30,000 unique questions, so that a visitor who comes to our museum could ask almost anything from life before to during the Holocaust to after, and help draw the connections between being engaged and speaking out for what's right and making our world a better place today.
incredible. And now, this is the hardest question. Also, I'm sure the question you get asked the most often. For budding entrepreneurs, what piece of advice would you give them?
The biggest one is, if you don't believe in yourself, nobody's going to believe in you. So if you have an idea, go and do it.
I think you have to take smart risks. If you're not willing to take risks, you won't move the ball forward, but you've got to have plan B, C, and D and think it through and invest carefully.
I think for me, it'd be figure out how to organize 100% of your energy and execution around what your customers want, figuring out what that is and how to make it better.
I would add on that a bit, just this notion of kind of incremental innovation. You can sometimes be overwhelmed by the scope of an idea or how much you have to take on, but you don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to have everything figured out. Just listen to your customers, solve one piece of the problem. Like for us, we just launched a feature to help parents interview babysitters. It's a tiny thing, but there's just a lot of friction in figuring out when you can meet with someone and a flurry of texts and voicemails and everything, right? That's just one piece of all the juggle is real, as we tend to say, right? There's just a lot of points of friction, but as a budding entrepreneur, I think people sometimes get overwhelmed by all of it and just, focusing and chip away. You can release all the time, so just keep chipping away at the big problem and get started.
Just get started.
Yeah.
That's a huge step in entrepreneurship, seems to be. Well, thank you so much for joining us again. Congratulations on being 2018 Chicago Innovation Award winners.
Thanks.
And
for
we'll
having
see you.
us.
We'll see you on the stage in just a few minutes here.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
All right, Nasdaq followers, stay tuned for more. We have the closing bell coming right up at 3:50.